In this video, I'm going to show you how to cut and sew your very own A-line fringe gown. So this is the fabric I'm working with, and the fabric is already on a fold, okay? The first thing I went ahead to do was to mark out my zip allowance. I used 1.5 inch here. You can use 1 inch. Me, my ancestors told me to use 1.5, so that's what I'm using. So after marking out my zip allowance, the next thing I went ahead to do was to secure it on a fold with my office pins. Then I went ahead to fold again. Now that part that has the folded zip allowance is the back, while this new fold is the front, okay? So the first thing I went ahead to do after folding was I went ahead to mark my starting point. I always do this now because I want to be able to add sewing allowance for my shoulder slant without interfering with the neck dip. Okay, so this is my starting point. You can do as much as 1 inch from the top for your starting point. So that's my starting line. So for my starting line, I went down and I marked my bust point at 8 inches and my under bust point at 13.5 inches. These are like the two major, before I bite my tongue, major measurements you need for this gown. So after marking it out, the next thing I went ahead to do was I went ahead to draw it, okay, to connect my lines together. So for my neck width, I used 4 inches, and for my neck depth, I used 5 inches. You can go ahead and use 5.5 inches depending on how deep you want it to be, but I used 5 inches. So after next thing I went ahead to do was to connect my neck width and my neck depth together, and I did a triangle. Is it a V neckline? I don't know why I wanted to call it triangle. So after marking out my neckline, next thing I had to do was to mark my shoulder point at 8.5 inches. Now, when you are sewing your own, mark your own shoulder point, okay? So after marking my shoulder point at 8.5 inches, the next thing I went ahead to do was I came down by half an inch, and I did this so that I can effectively shape my arm, my shoulder slant. I don't know why I'm mistaking shoulder slant for armhole today. Anyways, so marked my shoulder slant. Then from the top, I came down, that's half the measurement of my shoulder point, which is 4 inches. And from that point, I marked half an inch inward. And the reason I'm doing this is so that I can shape out my armhole, okay? So after doing this, I just connected that point to my shoulder point. Then the next thing I went ahead to do was to mark out my bust. Now my bust is 9.5 inches, okay, which is what I marked first. Then I went ahead to add 1.5 inch for ease allowance, because you guys know that this gown is not a fitted gown, it's a free gown. So I added 1.5 inch, okay. So now after marking this, the next thing I went ahead to do was to connect my markings together to give my armhole, okay. So this is how I marked my armhole. Now, after marking my armhole from the middle at my under bust point, I went ahead to mark my under bust measurement at 8 inches. After marking my under bust measurement at 8 inches, I marked 1.5 inch ease allowance, just like I did for my bust. Then from that point, I connected it to the hem, okay? I gave it a little bit of slanty A-line drama going on there. I also connected my under bust point to my bust point, okay? Now, after connecting, I realized that I didn't mark out the length of my gown, which is what I just went ahead to do. I marked out my gown length at 40 inches. That's plus sewing allowance. That's hemming allowance. That's to turn over the gown. Okay. So after doing this, next thing I went ahead to do was to add 1 inch seam allowance. Okay. Added 1 inch seam allowance and I connected everything together. Now at the hem, I went up by 1 inch. Okay. At the hem, I went up by 1 inch because I want to give this gown this A-line, flared, rounded hem. Okay, so which is what I did here. So after curving in the hemline of this gown, the next thing I went ahead to do was to mark the back part, okay? So same thing we did for the front, I did same thing for the back. I went ahead to mark my starting line. After marking my starting line, I marked my neck width at 4 inches and my neck depth at 1 inch, okay? So after doing this, the next thing I went ahead to do was to connect my markings together for the neckline. And at that my shoulder slant, I went ahead to add sewing allowance, 1 cm sewing allowance for my shoulder slants. Just like I explained before, I don't want it to interfere with the neck depth. Okay, so now after marking the back part, it's time to cut. So I just grabbed my scissors and I cut out the neckline for the back part. Now, after cutting out the neckline for the back part, I went ahead to cut out the neckline for the front part. I cut my shoulder slant. I cut the hem. I think for me, my favorite part, or my favorite part when it comes to sewing, is actually cutting. Okay, after verifying my measurements and cutting. The sewing part is enjoyable, but I prefer cutting. I don't know. This is just for this particular tutorial. In my next tutorial, I will see something else. So this is what it looked like after I was done cutting. This is what the back part looks like. Very simple, very straightforward. Okay, now this is what the front part looks like with the V-neck. The back part has the normal, is it round neck, I'll call it. Yeah. Okay, so now remember that the picture I showed you guys, this gown has fringes or ropes, anything you want to call it, it has it. So I this is the fabric I'm going to use to cut the rope. Okay, so the next thing I went ahead to, depending on how long you want it to be, I just went ahead to mark 2.5 inch for the width of this fabric. And the length, I used length 18. Now this 18 I came about was like my full length. I marked whatever my gown length is, where it stopped at my knee. Okay, at my knee, whatever is left of what my full length is, that is what I took for the length of this fringe. Okay, this rope. Now, so after cutting out that rope piece, it's time to sew. So I cut out the lining. After cutting out the lining, I went ahead to put my paper stay on the neckline of this gown. So this is the lining, and I didn't want to use a facing, so I wanted to use my lining to turn it over. And this is how I did it. So you're just going to place the right side of the fabric facing the lining. Okay, so the wrong side will be facing you. You want to make sure everything is well aligned, then you're going to sew it. Okay, so I'm also going to do same thing for the back. Okay, you're going to align properly, the wrong side facing you, the right side facing the lining. Okay, you're just going to turn over the neckline, top stitch, and lay the armhole and the sides with your hemming gum. So I took it over to my sewing machine and I just joined the neckline. Now, after joining the neckline, the next thing I went ahead to do was I cut out the outline. After cutting out the outline, I took out the pins. After taking out the pin, I took it back to my sewing machine and I gave it a very good top stitch. And I know I keep saying this in all tutorials, but you people keep coming for me in the comment section. Ada, it's not top stitch, it's under stitch. I know, but I'm too old to start calling it under stitch. I've been calling it top stitch for more than 15 years of my life. So you should manage it like that. So after doing that for the back part, it's time for the front part. Okay, so same thing I did for the back. I aligned the neckline and I gave it a very good join, if there's anything like that. So the after joining the neckline to the lining, the next thing I went ahead to do was I used my scissors to cut it out. Now, if you mustn't even line this outfit if you don't want, but if you're working with a very light fabric, you should line the outfit. Okay, especially that it's carrying weight at the hem. So after cutting out the outline, the next thing I went ahead to do was to top stitch. Okay, so after top stitching, I gave the neckline a very good press. The armhole, the sides, and the hem, and also the zip allowance, I sealed it down with my hemming gum. I didn't have to top stitch, but you can top stitch if you want. Okay, so I did this for both parts of the back part. Okay, so after doing this for both parts of the back part, you can see this thing is a tongue twister. Next thing I went ahead to do was to join it on the zip allowance. Okay, I went ahead to join it on the zip allowance. Yeah, I took my time. Okay, now, after joining it on the zip allowance, the next thing I went ahead to do was to attach my zip. Okay, I like to attach the zip before proceeding. Like, once I can attach a zip at the back, I like to simplify my sewing process so that I don't have to start struggling with back and front part. Okay, so after joining the zip and giving it a good press, this is what it looks like. Okay, So this is what the zip. I don't even know why I keep opening and closing for you guys, but I want you guys to know that the zip is well laid. Okay, there's nothing you can tell me. Now the next thing I went ahead to do was to mark out my measurement, and since we added just 1 inch sewing allowance all over, I just went ahead to mark out that 1 inch back. Yeah. So after marking it for the left hand side and from the right hand side, now this is what the front part looks like or looks like. Choose the one you want after turning the neckline over. Okay, so this is what it looks like. You can see it's very simple and very straightforward. Okay, now the next thing I went ahead to do, I think I need to put this thing on a shirt. I keep saying simple and straightforward. I need to put it on a crested shirt. Okay, so next thing I went ahead to do was to place the back part on the front part, secure with office pins, make sure that the center and everything is well aligned. Then I went ahead to join my shoulder slant and the sides. Okay, so I took it over to my sewing machine and I joined the shoulder slant. Now, because I added 1 cm sewing allowance for joining allowance for the shoulder, that is what I just picked out from inside. Then I went ahead to join the side of this gown. And yes, that's my waist bin. Okay, behave as if you do not see it. Yeah, behave as if you do not see it. Thank you. Okay, so after joining the left hand side, I went ahead to join the right hand side, and this is what we have here for the gown. It's coming together, right? It's coming together. Now, something if you want it to be, I'll show you. I'll tell you guys something much later, though. But this is where we are now for this gown. Okay. Now the next thing I went ahead to do was to bring out my sleeves because I'm going to join my sleeve. If you don't know how to cut a basic sleeve, because this is a basic sleeve, I have in fact, 3 detailed tutorial on this channel on how to cut and sew a basic sleeve. You want to check that out in the description box or in the comment section wherever you're watching from. Now, there's a child somewhere close to my house screaming. I don't know why the child is screaming. Ignore. Okay? Thank you. Okay, now, so the first thing I went ahead to do was to secure my the what's it called now, the sleeve to the shoulder line. Okay, so after securing the sleeve to the shoulder point, you're also going to secure it to the armhole side. So after securing the sleeve to the dress with my pins, the next thing I went ahead to do was I took it over to my sewing machine and I just joined it. I think for me, when I'm sewing my sleeves, if I'm doing it when it's secured with office pins, it's more chaotic. But my fabric clips, they keep getting lost. Let me not speak bad English. Every time I bring them out. So now I'm even scared of bringing plenty because I will use and I'll throw away. Eh? Anyways, I just took my time to join the sleeve to the outfit. We all know when it comes to sleeves, it is slow and steady wins the race. When you are fast, you might not get your desired result. Okay, so after joining the sleeve, this is what we have here. Very straight, very smooth and well aligned. Now remember those fabric we cut out to create, is it the rope or the fringe, whatever you want to call it that. So I just went ahead to fold it and I went ahead to join it. I know you guys are seeing me use both my industrial machine and domestic machine. No, 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 verse. Oh, sorry. And I told you guys I have an assistant right now. So that is why. Okay, so now after joining the side, the next thing I went ahead to do was to push it to the middle. I made sure the seam was on the middle and I also joined it. That's to seal one end of the rope or the fringe, anything you want to call it. Now I'm trying to explain something to you guys here. Normally, okay, if you want to attach this thing, there are two ways to attach it. So the first thing you can do is you place the rope like this, you sew it, then you use your facing to turn it over. Okay, you can do that. But I didn't do that because I had extra. When I was calculating, I mistakenly calculated the length too long. So I have like a lot of fabric on the hem. So I'm going to use another style. So next I just went ahead to do was to mark the points I wanted the ropes or the fringes to be. And I did like 3 inches in between. Okay, so this is 3 inches in between. That's what I did here. Now, after doing this, the next thing I went ahead to do was I grabbed the rope. I don't know, should we call it rope or fringe? I'm calling it rope when the type is going to be fringe. Okay, so the locked end is going to be at, of course, at the hem of this gown. So the first thing I went ahead to do was I used my pin to secure the rope to the hem of the gown. Okay, so after securing to the hem of the gown, this is what we have here. I told you guys I'm going to show you another way to attach it and I just went ahead to join it. Okay, I went ahead to join it. I don't know why my camera looked funny here, but maybe I didn't clean the lens. So I went ahead to join it. Now, after joining it, you want to take your time though. After joining it, so you have like a clean finish. Okay. So after joining it, this is what it looks like. Now, to make sure it is stable, the next thing I went ahead to do was I flipped it over and I top stitched. Okay. A very neat and very precise top stitch because I didn't want it to be so evident that I made stitches on the hem of this gown. So you want to top stitch as close as possible to the hem, okay? As close as possible. So which is what I did here. I gave it a good top stitch. I actually took my time longer than normal for this one. And this is what the top stitch looks like. You can see it is very neat. Very, very, very neat. So you want to make sure you do that for yours. So now the hem is still not stable because I didn't seal that part. So the next thing we're going to go ahead to do, ladies and gentlemen, is grab our hemming gum and we're going to seal. So me, a lot of the times I do this hemming gum double, like I fold it into two when I'm sealing. So after sealing the hem, this is what the gown looked like. Okay, I thought you guys are going to tell you something. You can pick a dart for the back so you don't have a bulge at the back. Okay, so if I'm going to repeat this gown, I'm going to pick that at the back. This is what it looked like. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this tutorial, make sure you like, make sure you share, make sure you subscribe. If you're watching from Facebook, make sure you like and share. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.